Are you looking for a video to improve your understanding on project monitoring and evaluation? To understand the differences between inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impacts, this video will help you. Stay tuned. Hi everyone, welcome to Researcher Hub channels. This channel, just for those who have not well aware about this channel is about for you guys learning M&A, research, project management, and project design. For those who haven't subscribed on this channel, please go ahead and subscribe it. Then you can be with us. See any new video that we are posting. We are aiming to post one new video in every week. Therefore, make sure you subscribe to follow us. Thanks everyone for your subscription. This lesson we're going to discuss the project's component, which I believe majority of you have been understand or well aware about them. Here are they. They include inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impacts. So in this video, we're gonna discuss very detailed what are the difference among them, how each one is formulated. Before we going very detailed in those, let ask yourself first, why do you need to know this? Well, I believe you might have many answers for these questions, right? Yep. Now, let me try to group your answers into only 4 groups. First, I believe some of you might say that the reason that you need to understand it because it will help you to understand your project clearly. What do we mean by that? It is for sure that when you understand exactly what is output, what is outcomes, what is the impacts, then you can tell about your projects in and out. Meaning that you can just quickly summarize your project in just like a 1 or 2 minutes. Then you just describe your project. What is your project's activities? What is its intended outputs? How the outcomes generated or how the impacts generated. Some of you might say, "Come on, that's too easy to describe it." But for sure, like my years experience, I met many program managers and project managers who are struggling just describing that because they don't know clearly what is their own project's intended outcomes or impacts. Thus, it is very important to understand what is outputs, outcomes, and impacts clearly. Then you just can summarize your own project. Now let's move to point number 2. Point number 2 is help you to understand cause and effects of each components. It helps you to better understand the relationship among outputs, outcomes, and impact. You can describe what's the intended outcome would generate the impacts, meaning that you can tell which impact was generated from which outcome. Now let's move to reason number 3, which is related to planning. With a good understanding on the project components or on what need to be done, all the outputs, outcome, and activity, you can plan your activity very well. You can plan what need to be done and when, and also what need to be monitored. Last but not least, it is about the donor's requirement. I believe you are aware that working for non-profit organizations, we are depending on the granting. Without donor funding, our activity, our organization cannot run. So to get a fund from the donor, we need to submit a proposal. That proposal need to need to be a sound proposal which have a good describing on the project activity, outputs, outcomes, and impact, so on. From our perspective, we said that we have to please the donor, make sure the donor happy with our proposal, then we will get funded. While from the donor perspective, we will not get funded if we do not follow the donor's requirement. What donor requirement is? Donor want us to describe the project precisely. What is our intended output? What is outcome? What is the impacts, and so on. So these are the donor's requirement. In a short, we need to follow donor requirements to get funded. Okay, now I believe you have a better understanding on the reason that you need to know further on this project's component. Now let's examine one by one. First, let's start with inputs. So what do we mean by inputs? Inputs are all resources that we are utilizing for doing activity, either directly or indirectly, which is include budget or money that we have, funding that we get from the donors, materials, and human resource, as well as the time that we are utilizing for that one. So this is about the input. Now move to the activity. What do we mean activity? Activity is the direct action to generate outputs. For example, we are conducting the training. We are farmers planting their rice at the rice field. So this is kind of activity that we are doing, or projects doing it. Just to let you know that activity statement, we are normally form it with the gerund form. Like I mentioned, we said that organizing M&E training for blah 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 for particular target group. So that's activity. Next one, let me examine the outputs together. What is output? Output is the direct result from the activity. What do we mean by that? Look at this picture. When we punch, activity is punching. So what is direct result? I said on the slide, it is about punching. It's not about the result from the punching, but just focusing on number of punch. Now let's go back to our previous example related to training. The outputs from the training include number of participants who attended the training, number of training sessions that we have provided, and number of hours or day that we conducted the training for those group of participants. Another example related to the rice planting. So the outputs included number of days that the farmers spent for rice planting, number of farmers involved in planting the rice, and the last one is size of land has been planted the rice. How many hectares was planted? So these are all the outputs that we are recording. So now we already discussed on inputs, activities, and outputs. Let's move to the outcomes. Outcomes is the change at individual level. What do I mean by change in individual level? Here I will introduce you three things that you can look at it. First is about change on the participant knowledge. Second, change on their thinking or perception. And third is about change on their practice. Now let us see one by one. Changing knowledge. So generally we develop the outcomes based on the context. So let's look at the context first on the knowledge of our intended target group. Based on our survey, we realize that people have a low understanding on the climate change adaptation techniques. They don't know how to do or what to do whenever there's climate change or there's drought happen in the community. So it is about their knowledge. Therefore, from this knowledge, we can generate the expected outcomes, such as increase farmers' knowledge on the climate change adaptation. So this is one of expected outcomes that the project can generate it based on the context that we have. Next one, let's look at thinking or perception. Perception, the same thing, we generate the expected outcome from the context of the perception as well. Let's look at together. What is the perception that our farmers have? Here, one of the perception that they have is they believe there's no yield losing with a traditional method. So they love applying traditional method because they believe this. They, in another word, they believe that harvesting rice using tractor lead losing the yield. Like you can see this picture, they believe that they don't get much yield because of the tractor harvesting. Now from this context, let's generate the expected outcomes together. Here's one expected outcome that the project can use is change farmers' misunderstanding toward using new technologies for agriculture. So this one, so the project intention will change their perception or misunderstanding. So we will design some activity to address this misperception. Alright, I hope it's clear for you. Now move to the practice. Similarly, look at the context of the practice currently. Look at the picture, you can see that farmers love applying traditional method. So they keep applying traditional method for plowing, for planting and harvesting. So this is the current practice. What can we do with that? Yes, we can formulate the expected outcomes like this. Farmer increase using modern methods for agriculture. So this can be one of our expected outcomes. Okay, by now we already cover inputs, activities, outputs, and outcome. Now let's move to the last one, which is impacts. So what is impact? So impact is change beyond the individual level, which we already discussed. So what is beyond individual level? I also have 3 things for you to consider. 1, change at the family level. 2, change at the community. 3, change at the country or global level. Okay, now let's examine one by one. We look at the context of the family first, then we can generate the expected impacts. If we examine the family incomes, there's low incomes in the family. At the same time, each family, they keep borrowing money from the bank or from the neighbors to do something. So then what can be our expected impacts? So the impact is increased household income. And number 2, absolutely will be decreased debt or borrowing. So this is our 2 examples that we can generate it as the impacts for the project based on the context that we have seen. So number 2 is the context in the community that we would like to see as well. If we look at that, we can see that there's a low enrollment rate in that community, a particular community that we would like to work with. Number 2, there's low production after the agriculture. Last but not least, we look at the development in the community. There's slow development or low development there. Then the project intervention would like to have the impact is increased schooling rate. That's one impact. And the second is about improving the community development or have a better development in that community. Then we would like to see more production there or more rice production can be produced there and then exported. So this is the expected impacts that project would like to see by the end of the project in the community. Now move to the last one, which is at the country or global level. So now let's look at the context of the country, then generate the expected impact for the project. It depends on the nature of the project, but for the agriculture project, I would encourage you to look at poverty rate, look at the food supplies and food exported, the ability of the country to export the rice, and also look at the global well-being indicators. So this kind of thing, that these three things for the agriculture. So then the expected impact that project would like to contribute is reduce the global heat. Just bear in mind, we are not using that directly reduce, but we said a contribution to reduce the global heat. And number two, we also contribute to increase the food supply in the country or export it. Last but not least, we would like to contribute to reduce the poverty in the country. So by now we have covered inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impacts. Hope you have better understanding on this. Before we end the lesson, let's recap it. In this video, I introduced you main 4 reasons to better understand the differences of project's elements. First, it will help you to understand the project clearly. Number 2, you can describe the project dynamic or cause and effect. Number 3, it helps you to make effectively planning. And number 4 is about the donor requirements. Next is about output. Output is the all resource that we use to do activity that include budget, material, and human resource. Then activity is the action that generate outputs, such as like conduct a training, planting rice, having a meeting, like that. And then the output is the direct result from the activity, which more focus on number of participants, number of training, number of farmers involved in rice planting, number of days that we organize a training. And outcome is the change at the individual level, which we focus on changing of knowledge, changing on perception, and changing on the practice. While impact is more focusing on the change at the family level, community, and country. So in the summary, there's in a project component we have inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impacts. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. And if you have any questions, please drop your question or comment in the comment box below. Don't forget to subscribe to get more video on M&E research and project management. Feel free to let me know if you would like to hear any specific topic. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a good day.